The New York Jets say goodbye to Sam Darnold and hello to Zach Wilson. Does that make Sam Darnold the future in Carolina? And what does that mean for Carolina's dynasty outlook? All that and more today on the Dynasty Newsletter. I'm your host, Adam Wilde, joined by my co-host, Chris Allen. Chris, how's Carolina looking going forward?
It doesn't change much for me if we're looking at the rest of the Carolina Panthers assets at this point, because we're still tying them to I'd say a below average quarterback at best. I mean, regardless of the unknowns or the intangibles, like regarding Sam Darnold, like what he could be and what he couldn't be. His past performance over the past few seasons since he came into the league in 2018 hasn't shown that he can really be more, elevate them like past what Teddy Bridgewater did in 2020. I think over the past few seasons, he's been bottom 5 in terms of EPA per play, completion percentage over expected, still in the bottom 10. I mean, Joe Flacco, if you look at the passing stats comparing between like Joe Flacco and Sam Darnold, who played on the exact same team last season. I mean, Joe Flacco actually wound up outperforming him in a number of metrics. So it's not like Sam Darnold is an elevator. So if he's not going to be that type of guy, at best, we can hope for similar to what we got out of Teddy Bridgewater and what he was capable of doing with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson. And well, since they don't have Curtis Samuel, at least there is some hope that he will continue to use Christian McCaffrey and he'll continue to get his requisite targets. The one thing I did find interesting was that a lot of folks are already looking at Christian McCaffrey to really be one of the biggest beneficiaries, but Sam Darnold hasn't really targeted the running back, at least not more so than the other positions. Now, he didn't have a guy like Christian McCaffrey to throw him to, so I totally understand that.
You better throw to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, you're going to throw to Christian McCaffrey. He's going to get his 15+% target share on a weekly basis. No qualms about that at all. But to say that any one of these guys is going to be a winner, or his talent or his usage is going to be elevated by this Sam Darnold signing, I'm not really seeing it at this point. So for me, it's still just the valuations for each of these assets from a dynasty perspective pretty much stay static. Like, where you're drafting DJ Moore in startups, where are we taking him? Third-ish round, somewhere in there?
Probably around the third. Yeah, I mean, in Superflex, it's going to be probably mid to late third.
Yeah, so somewhere in there, no problems with that. Robbie Anderson, if you want to take throw a dart at him, well, not even throw a dart at him, because we saw that what he could be with Teddy Bridgewater now moving down to that system. If you want to continue to hold him as an asset, no problems there. And Christian McCaffrey, still within around my top 5 when it comes to Dynasty RB rankings, somewhere in there. So no changes in stock for any of those guys. It's more of what that long term is going to look like, because if there's still rumors about the Panthers gunning for a quarterback at pick 8 in this draft class, and we're still not sure if Fields is going to get taken by San Francisco at 3, then what does the long-term outlook for some of these guys look like? And that's still somewhat shaky. I still think that if it's going to be Sam Darnold, since they exercised his 5th-year option, they're going to at least keep him for a couple, maybe at least this season, see how it works out, and see if a quarterback is going to fall to them at some point in this draft. Okay, fine. But again, it doesn't change too much for me in regards to the dynasty value of the current guys like on the Panther squad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I borrowed Sig's intro. Now I'm going to borrow his Mayor of Narrative Street hat, because there's a lot of Darnold haters out there, and I don't know that I'm a fan of Darnold or expect much out of him either, but in Dynasty, I just play a game of values. I mean, if I think that a player is going to exceed the value that they cost, I'm going to buy him. And he's still being – a poll was going around in Superflex. I guess it doesn't matter, but in Superflex for Derek Carr or Sam Darnold, everybody picked Derek Carr. I'm like, okay,
why?
I'm going shopping, because here's the most important thing to me. One, Carolina may have just hit a huge slam dunk. Let's go down Narrative Street for a second. Just say that the Jets have been a giant mess, because they have. I mean, he's had multiple offensive coordinators. He had to deal with Adam Gase. So, I mean, just throw that season away. And he had mono for 6 of those games. So just throw away the whole COVID season with the mono and with Adam Gase. And I thought that he would come back and be pretty talented last year, despite kind of everything going on around him. But it's tough for anyone to succeed in a year where there's COVID going around. You get mono, like it gets mono, right? So, anyways, to get back on track, they could have hit a huge slam dunk if maybe everything was just working against them, and we're going to see USC Sam Darnold. Well, you got him for a second, a fourth, and a sixth. I mean, but the thing that stands out the most is they took the fifth-year option immediately. It would have been kind of silly and not very enticing if they would have traded that for Sam Darnold and then not taken his fifth-year option. Yeah. Because then it's like, well, do they have plans for him? And then bam, immediately they drop the news. Teddy Bridgewater is free to seek a trade. Okay, I'm in. That's what I needed to hear. I needed significant draft capital. They didn't get the 103 for him, but they got a second, a fourth, and a sixth. I would consider that significant for someone who people thought was a bust. And then they're gonna add the fifth-year option and trade Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, I'm in on Sam Darnold. Is it an elevator? Probably not for DJ Moore. Probably not for Robbie Anderson. I don't think anything matters for Christian McCaffrey, but it's 2 years that he can build rapport with those players. Robbie Anderson's going to be a free agent. We discussed DJ Moore prior to the show. He's going to be a free agent as well, but almost certainly they're going to take his fifth-year option. We were looking at Calvin Ridley too, probably the same thing. So I don't know that it's an elevator, but if DJ Moore gets his extension, Sam Darnold gets his extension, and we see some exciting Sam Darnold, like the flashes that we've seen, well, he's a huge steal because he's like in the QB 20s, So
yeah, I get that. I buy it for now, and that's where I'm trying to balance like both sides of it, where you're trying to balance the historical portion of it. Like this is what we've seen of Sam Darnold, and it's just been not great. We'll just leave it at that.
Right.
But the allure is obvious, right? Like, because I mean, that was the one thing that everybody pointed out. It's like, we've seen Sam Darnold and he's been bad, but we've never seen him in this type of situation.
Right.
But like, we kind of said that about Teddy Bridgewater, didn't we? I mean, like, he had a great offensive line.
His leg.
I know, but I'm saying even in New Orleans, it was like, we saw him be a part of a great offense.
Right.
But it was like, well, now if you give him even greater weapons, like instead of just Michael Thomas and then maybe Traquan Smith, who we thought was going to be great, like when he first came out, now we're giving him DJ Moore, we're giving him Curtis Samuel, like, oh my gosh, and now we're bringing in Robbie Anderson, and before we thought Ian Thomas was a complete bust, like now he's also got Ian Thomas, he got Christian, like the allure for Teddy Bridgewater was still there. So like, we've done this before, and I guess my problem with not with the Jets, I mean, the Jets got, for me, I thought it was a good deal for them to get out from under what was seemingly a bad relationship already. But my question for the Panthers is, why Darnold? Because you essentially break the bank, considering how much they're going to wind up owing Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, you break the bank in order to get a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, which, if you look at Teddy Bridgewater historical stats, I mean, nobody should really be surprised as to where they wound up at the end of the season. And now they want to do a quarterback reset after just 1 year into Bridgewater's contract, and then they go out and get Sam Darnold. Like, is that really like how you want to just? To me, the equation isn't really balanced, right? If you wanted to go and make a hard reset at the position, then do what San Francisco did and make a push and try and get up to 3, 4, or wherever in order to secure one of the top options at the draft. Maybe they think they can get that at 8. But it just seems
about San Francisco yet.
Right. I know. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm just thinking that if they really wanted to do this, and if they want the guy under center that's going to maximize the talent of the guys that they currently have in front of them, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, we always assume the best, but he's only got so many years of extensive usage as well. I mean, if you want to maximize that talent, I mean, Sam Darnold isn't that guy that I would think can bring them to where they want to. And especially in a 17-game season, with as many holes as they also have on their offensive line and also on their defense, it just doesn't, like, that signing or that trade doesn't scream, we've now changed from a 6-17 win to a 7-win team to a 9-10 win team, or we can now contend with the rest of the people in the division. I mean, they can't even. There's no way.
Rebuilding though.
Saints might be rebuilding, but I'd put them ahead of the Panthers at this point.
And the Falcons have had a competitive team for 2 years, and they still finish under 500. So you never know.
It's true. It's just, to me, out of that entire division, I just can't see the Panthers making that. They just don't seem as strong of a team now with this trade versus where they were at with Teddy.
Yeah, but we've seen three teams coming out of that division. I mean, Tampa Bay is clearly ready to run for another Super Bowl. But so we do need to talk about the Jets side. But let's peel back the NFL curtain just for a second, because I think I have an answer to why Darnold. Somebody is going to miss the ship on Deshaun Watson. It might be Deshaun Watson missing the ship, because he might be out of the NFL once we find out what happens to him. No speculation here. Not going to get into it. Everybody here is completely against sexual assault, and hopefully the legal system takes care of the situation. There's NFL teams sitting there waiting for news to come out, essentially refreshing their Twitter account. And I think that the Carolina Panthers were probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, proponents for getting Deshaun Watson. And instead of sitting there and refreshing their Twitter accounts, waiting to find out who the next person is that's going to come out against Deshaun Watson, I think they had to do something. Sam Darnold was one of the only available people. Are you going to trade a second, a fourth, and a sixth for Sam Darnold, or are you going to give a first for Jimmy Garoppolo? It's not going to happen. There were only so many people available. And if Sam Darnold is a bust, well, then you've got mid-tier QB play for the next 2 years at least, and relatively cheap. Now, hopefully for them, they trade Teddy Bridgewater, because you're right. That's a lot of money sitting on your bench if they don't. But I do think it was a smart move, and I think from the NFL side of it, the only reason they got Sam Darnold is because they didn't get Deshaun Watson. They probably called for Russell Wilson too, if I'm being quite honest.
Well, that would be interesting if they made that call. But then from Russ's side of the equation, like what's the allure, considering the thing that he's complaining about currently in Seattle is being running for his life behind a weak offensive line. Then he goes out to Carolina and he's doing the same thing. So, I don't know.
Hence getting Sam Darnold, because it wasn't going to happen.
But I know. But this is going to be an excellent case study in what has the Adam Gase effect been on the NFL, where now you've got, literally two players that played on the same team together under the same man, and now they get a chance to play again in a different system, now in a better system. A more pass-friendly system. They were, I think, 8th in neutral passing rate in 2019. Once they shifted to Rule Brady in 2020, they fell back a little bit to 12th or 13th. It could have been related to Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know. But either way, I still think that this now will force them to look at what can Sam Darnold do, whether it's under pressure, which he does struggle. We've seen that in the past. Well, but at least now he has other options that can help get him out of that trouble. But I really will be one of those things to try and look at, like, well, what is the quote unquote Gase effect? Has that been over the past few seasons, and how can we as fantasy managers start to navigate? Well, guys that have played for Adam Gase, can we give them the benefit of the doubt or whatever? But I guess transitioning into looking at a team that he used to manage. Adam Gase, looking at the Miami Dolphins now. Looking at the other side of things. The Dolphins now, they trade for the third pick, or they trade out of the third pick. 49ers move up. Dolphins move back to 12. So we're looking at, I guess, fresh confidence in Tua after getting yanked during games. Fitzpatrick outplays him. They add Will Fuller. So on paper, Devontae Parker coming back healthy, Preston Williams coming back healthy. On paper, this is looking like a decent squad. Not even just from a fantasy perspective. Their defense was moving up. They're now, I think, top 5 in terms of defense DVOA. I like where this team is headed in terms of how you execute a rebuild. So if we're looking at some of these, we're looking at these assets from a fantasy football perspective, I guess, where are you now starting to look at the Miami Dolphins?
Well, I'll tell you what, their franchise is doing an incredible job. They could have took the bait and stood pat and took another quarterback, and I think that would have been a huge mistake. how quickly people were ready to jump off ship for Tua after we had a whole season of
Yeah,
tanking for Tua. But
yeah,
you know what? If the hip never happened, I don't think people would have been jumping off ship like that. I feel like people gave themselves a psychological excuse to jump ship when Tua didn't look so great. And another piece of narrative that I think was huge was pulling Tua to put Fitzpatrick in the game, and then Fitzpatrick finishing the game strong. He was a rookie, man. I mean, he was a rookie that struggled, Tua. So I get it, but I do think that he needed to have at least another year. And the Dolphins have so many picks now. They basically gave themselves an insurance policy by gathering first-round picks in the future to maybe take a quarterback. So if
yeah.
he doesn't work out this year, they might be in a position to take a quarterback next year. Not to mention they have a pick at pick 18. So the Dolphins are doing things right, and we're saving San Francisco for later. So to continue on the Dolphins, let me switch over to what they did, which was incredible. They received pick 106 and pick 123 with the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles received 112, a 2021 or 2022 first, and pick 156. So let's put Miami Dolphins right back at pick 6. Okay, going forward at pick 6, they're probably out of the quarterback range, but
Yeah.
there's pretty much two options here. It's going to be Penny Sewell, or it's going to be Jamar Chase, and it's going to be whatever your sometimes Bengals do, right? So they're going to either reunite Burrow with Chase, which I think would be a big mistake, or they're going to draft Penny, which they should, and then the Dolphins get Jamar Chase, which would be incredible.
Now, I don't know. I floated this idea beforehand, and folks are probably going to come for me for this, but I don't mind if they wind up taking Jamar Chase. I don't mind it.
Really?
There's something to be said about making your strengths stronger, and it's obvious that their core receiving group, whether if you want to look at it from when it was like AJ and Boyd, or when over like what last season when it was like T and Boyd, but that third wide receiver slot has always been a like problematic position for them.
Come on, no Auden Tate slander.
John Ross, no. Auden Tate has worked fine, but we can see how much the team values him. It's not like how much we value him.
Right.
Like I've been an Auden Tate stan like for the past like 3 seasons, but we can see how much the team values him. So if Auden Tate, if they are not willing to put him in that like 70-80% snap role, then something needs to give. They haven't done much to replace the tight end position. I mean, Eifert's gone. Any of the ones that have kind of come behind him, like haven't been like great, like impacts, more blocking than receiving. Mm-hmm. So, and they just got rid of one of their better pass blockers in Giovanni Bernard. So how are we supposed to make this better? I know everybody, the tried and true method is you build along the offensive line. You build in the trenches. Absolutely. Have no issues with that. But again, I go back to, well, even if they do build in the trenches, I mean, what is that passing game going to look like? So we're looking at T, we're looking at Boyd, and then we're going to look at, okay, is it Auden Tate's time? Are they going to give him that ability to be that third wide receiver? And if they have a chance in order to hit on another primary wide receiver that can really change like how that offense looks and how they can run their play action, and already has a connection to Joe Burrow, I don't mind it. I don't mind that specific pick, given the context of their situation and given the context of his connection with Joe Burrow. If they go the other route, I understand it, but I also don't mind. I'm not advocating for it. I just don't mind, and I don't discount the logic for going for somebody like Jamar Chase, just given what he can bring to the offense.
So I go to the other direction because Penny Sewell is basically the Laramie Tunsil tier, which it's funny how the NFL comes full circle because Laramie Tunsil pretty much gave the Dolphins all these picks, right?
Right.
But, so I think you just take Sewell, you develop there, and then see if you can hit in the second or third round. And a lot of people are saying they should take Pitts if they're going to take a receiver. But, look at the Cowboys had an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver, and they still took CeeDee Lamb. And some teams draft the way you should draft a dynasty, which is best player available. Jamar Chase is probably the best player available at that pick, at pick 6, or actually pick 5, right? So get it and I don't. Like I'm definitely taking Penny if I'm the Bengals. I'm not watching Joe Burrow spend another end of it promising season on IR. But I kind of get Chase. Chase is incredible. I just think the Dolphins are in the best spot in the world right here.
Mm-hmm.
They could use Penny Sewell. They could use Jamar Chase, and they can just sit back, eat your nachos, watch things play out, worry about 18 because they have another pick, right? So
yeah,
just let things play out, and then just take one of those two players. So I think the Dolphins are sitting pretty. But now we have to talk about the other side of this.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles traded out of quarterback. The Eagles have pick 12 now. So at pick 6, we're probably seeing 5 quarterbacks start up the draft, which means somebody has to trade out. Maybe the Bengals trade out. Probably seeing 5, which is incredible. Or Justin Fields might slide, whatever. But the Eagles are probably not getting Jalen Hurts replacement at pick 12. So, hey, Jalen Hurts, you see free Jalen behind me. I have to change it after this week. I feel like Jalen's free, but what do you think about Jalen Hurts going forward?
No, I love the way that they're at least showing that vote of confidence with Hurts. And I know that there's some concern about what he can bring to that offense, but we saw the peaks. I mean, we saw like what he could do, even with what was it? The ghost of Alshon Jeffrey, like running routes like every now and again. Zach Ertz, like in the back end of his career, even though they're trying to move Zach Ertz at the moment. We'll see how that works out. But Jalen Hurts, without like too much prep time, he was able to go in and put up like QB1, like almost overall QB1 weeks, not just one, but multiple.
Yep.
Without Jalen Reagor, I mean, it just, to me, he provided that. Not just, the rushing was obviously there, but look at what he was capable of doing as a passer. Right. To me, it looked like he was the better passer if you had to compare between him and their at the time their franchise quarterback Carson Wentz. So any of the knocks that folks like had on him, like coming into the league, I think he at least showed, maybe not definitively, but at least the capability is there for him to exceed or excel as a quarterback in this league. So Philly, I think, is doing the right thing by moving out, making sure that they're building around him as they can, and seeing what they can do with this roster, like moving forward. I mean, they still need to make like multiple changes along that offense. I mean, Jeffrey, I know that he's gone, but Ertz, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, there's pieces that are there that just aren't offering anything, or offering a lot of tangible results or tangible impact to that offense. So if they can build around him and add some more to it, then sure. I mean, obviously the Jordan Howard signing doesn't really do much for that, but that doesn't do much of anything. But again, it goes back to, I mean, if they're showing trust and confidence in Hurts as their starter, then we should start to see that the teams can't lie in the draft. That's Sigmund Bloom special. Mm-hmm. And by them doing that, it shows that this is how they want to operate their team, like going forward. And I think that's the best way for them.
So here's the thing we need to remember. Jalen Hurts was passing to Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham half the time.
Right.
Actually over half the time, because Alshon Jeffrey was hurt all year. And Jalen Reagor was hurt, I think, on multiple occasions, but at least one stint of a few games. So they're at pick 12. You're probably looking at Jalen Waddle, or maybe Devonta Smith falls to 12. Maybe fall isn't even the right word. That might be just the right spot for him, because I think after Jamar Chase, there's a plethora of players to go between the two. But you're probably looking at either Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith, and it might be a situation again where the worst Alabama player goes first. I don't know. I like Waddle. I'm just throwing shade.
Unnecessary shade, man.
I think Waddle might end up going first, but I think Devonta Smith probably has a better NFL career ahead of him. But either way, those are huge, huge upgrades for Jalen Hurts. So you're telling me not only did they trade out of quarterback range, but they're probably going to get him pretty awesome offensive weapon. No way Kyle Pitts gets there, so don't even talk about it. And hey, they have Dallas Goedert. That's what, at least when Dallas Goedert came back, he provided assistance, because it was you were asking Jalen to do a lot, and honestly, it never looked too big for him. In my opinion, and watching him, he looked like a franchise quarterback right off the bat. Was he perfect? No, absolutely not. And he was a rookie, but he extended plays with his athletic ability that we've seen, but not just with his athletic ability. I mean, he can pass on the run as well. So he looked like, methodical. I mean, he drove down the field like a 5-10 year vet sometimes. And I'm just so happy that they said, okay, we're going to build around him. Because when Doug Peterson left, it was a bad signal to me that, okay, Jalen Hurts isn't the guy. I thought that was the whole argument. I thought Doug Peterson said, I'm going with Jalen Hurts. And Howie said, no, I want somebody else. But Doug Peterson left and they stayed with Hurts.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm happy for it.
Yeah. And I think that shows commitment to what they're trying to build. And even though, I mean, Hurts wasn't the most efficient, like as a passer, I mean, again, we saw what those peaks could be. They saw what those peaks could be. So, I mean, it's more of an indication of where they see this going and how they can continue to build around him. And then that's where they can start to get back to where they were just a few seasons ago. And right. I think that's again best for all people involved. I mean, both parties for sure. So, I mean, Adam, we're talking about all these different these players. I mean, these how the teams are switching. I mean, or how these players are switching teams, and it's a lot of work for
you're telling me.
I mean, anybody to try and manage all this stuff. I mean, you come and listen to this podcast, you come and check out any of the other great shows we've got going here on the Football Guys network of shows. So how do you wind up, I mean, being able to digest it all and take it all as it? I mean, do you have time for all that?
I don't have time for it. I got show sheets to write. I've got research to do on my own. You can't get everything, especially the news. I mean, the news, how do I get all the I'm behind sometimes, man.
Exactly. So, I mean, the one thing that Football Guys now is offering, go to footballguys.com. They are offering a premium subscription. Go in and get that early bird special. So right now, if you hop on here, and I'm just showing you my screen right now, hop on, go to footballguys.com, click the join now button, big old orange button here up in the top right-hand corner. It'll take you through all the pricing selections here, and you can see it now, like what they have available. Early bird discount, boom. I mean, reduction in each of those prices. So come in, check those out, see what works for you. And so if you want to continue getting analysis from myself and Adam, if you want to get some analysis from some of the bigger names that are part of the Football Guys family, I mean, the Matt Waldmans of the world, Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, I mean, any of the other folks that'll be coming here and giving you week in and week out great content, great analysis. Come in here, footballguys.com, get that premium subscription, get that early bird discount so that you can take advantage of all that and start winning your leagues. So, I mean, that's what we do over here at Football Guys. I mean, we'll do the work. You guys continue winning. That's what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So what do we got here what are we talking about here on our way out? So
this is it.
This is it right here, man. So the 49ers discussion. So we're talking about the trade that winds up getting San Francisco to 3. And the constant discussion since then has been, who are the 49ers going to select at 3? All the news media they're reporting it's Mac Jones at 3, Mac Jones at 3, Mac Jones at 3. I know that Justin Fields is supposed to have his second pro day. Kyle Shanahan and crew are supposed to be there at the second pro day. I believe it's supposed to be on the 14th, if I'm not mistaken. But they already made a point to go to Mac Jones first pro day and take a look at what he's got going on. So it's already sounding like it's going to be Mac Jones at 3. The argument, of course, went in the way of, well, who better fits with the 49ers, blah, 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 blah. I'll let you start. I mean, we'll take the news at face value. Mac Jones at 3. How do you look at San Francisco now moving forward?
It's not even that. It's the argument is even that Mac Jones is a bad quarterback. It's the slander that's the problem. The slander that's coming out against Justin Fields, when you look at his commitment, you look at the injuries he's played with, the dedication to the game that he has, and then you look at Mac Jones. It's not to tear down Mac Jones, but people almost force you into this corner because what Justin Fields is what you need in a franchise quarterback. The dedication, the passion he plays with. That's what you need in a franchise quarterback. And I don't know that is the strong points for Mac Jones. I don't think it is. I mean, he's got his problems off the field. He's enjoyed his time at Alabama in his own way. Justin Fields is coming out here running 4.4s. I mean, he obviously lives for football. You don't run a 4.4 as a quarterback. That's not what you need to work on. That's what that's the extra. Running the 4.4 is the extra. Running the 4.4 was Justin Fields saying, "Oh, I can be a great quarterback, but I can be more than a great quarterback." And you have people like Dan Orlovsky coming out and saying, "Oh, I've heard whispers that he's not dedicated. I've heard some whispers that he's not all in on football." Well, then he goes and talks to people who are actually coaches of Justin Fields, and they say, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." So then Dan Orlovsky comes back and says, "Oh, well, I've talked to some people closer." Well, why didn't you do that first before slandering the kid? So now we're talking about a much more inferior quarterback, in my opinion, in Mac Jones at 3. Why on earth would San Francisco give up that significant value to get to 103 to take Mac Jones? I mean, maybe I'm getting a little too amped up about something that was intentional from the 49ers. Maybe they knew that there would be a second pro day, so it's better to go to Mac Jones during Justin Fields' first one to put a little smoke screen on who they're taking. I hope. But I really hope that they're not going to take Mac Jones just because Mac Jones has a better PR rep, apparently. I mean, Justin Fields can't do anything more than he accounted for 51 touchdowns with 3 interceptions in 2019. Who? And that's not playing at Colorado State. I mean, he was playing at Ohio State, Big Ten competition, threw for 41 touchdowns, ran for 10 on only 3 interceptions. Absolutely remarkable. It's not Aaron Gordon that we were gushing over when he threw for 70 touchdowns or whatever against garbage. No, this is real competition. Justin Fields has the goods. I think he's the 102 in Dynasty for Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. And even if Mac Jones goes at 3, and now people are putting Trey Lance ahead of him, I'll actually put more on Trey Lance going ahead of Justin Fields than I would Mac Jones. Trey Lance offers similar upside to Justin Fields. I don't think Mac Jones in today's NFL has even a portion of the ceiling that guys are Konami code quarterbacks like Justin Fields and Trey Lance have to offer. I don't think he has it. I think it's not a wasted pick, but definitely a wasted opportunity. Definitely a Mitchell Trubisky type of deal where you took Mitchell Trubisky and you get to watch Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson tear apart the league. If you want to do that, San Francisco, go ahead.
I don't know if we can put Mitchell Trubisky and Mac Jones in the same sentence and then
I'm sorry to Mac Jones. I mean, I wouldn't have had to come for him if they didn't slander Justin Fields so hard.
Yeah, I think that's the systemic problem when it comes to rookie eval, right? Especially when it's linked to an actual team and we can start tying draft capital to it. And now it's going to affect how we as fantasy managers value that player. Is that we can't value one player without even indirectly slandering another, because for one player to move up, that has to shift down the value of other players. So as we elevate Mac Jones, and of course, then we have to devalue Justin Fields, because we know where the other quarterbacks are going. We have an idea. We obviously know where Trevor Lawrence is going to go. We have an idea of where Zach Wilson is going to go. And then now with this news that has been, I guess, kind of coming up over the last week and a half, we know where Mac Jones is going to go, allegedly. So now where does Fields wind up? So the disconnect where the fantasy community values Justin Fields for most of us. I mean, I've seen guys like, Mr. Ray Garvin, Ray GQ, spouting out or talking about Mac Jones. And I mean, he feels that he's one of the better quarterbacks of the class. And I completely agree with him.
Fine. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with him. That's not to say that Mac Jones isn't a good prospect. It's just when we discuss either of them, it's now that their careers are now linked together. It's very much in the same way that it was Mariota and Winston, their careers when they first came out. It's their careers were going to be linked, and now look at the two of them. But I mean, hopefully that same story doesn't happen to both of them. But we can see how we were looking at, well, Mariota, he can be this dual threat quarterback, and Jameis Winston, more of a pocket passer, but he can be wild. I mean, we can see the peaks with him. So we're doing the same dance, and the problem that's come out obviously over the past week is this, semi-dog whistling, like when it comes to the character concerns and things of that nature. So, I mean, all of this to say that would both players work well in a Kyle Shanahan offense?
Sure.
Yeah, yes. Kyle Shanahan has made it work with C.J. Beathard.
Mm-hmm.
He can make it work with guys like Mac Jones. Yeah, Nick Mullins. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the name attached to the quarterback attached to Kyle Shanahan isn't the concern. It's if you want to maximize the talent of the guys that they have around. If you want to maximize George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, then who offers that? And I don't see how, and like you mentioned, I don't see how a guy that has consistently put himself out there for the last 3-4 seasons, and he went toe-to-toe with Trevor Lawrence, outplayed Trevor Lawrence,
outright outplayed him with probably a broken rib.
Outright outplayed him. And now we're saying that and now the narrative is that he can't be the one to elevate the guys in San Francisco. So it'll always be wild to me, like how things shift as the reality of football comes into play. And for the folks that put in like the detailed evaluations, I mean, a lot of them probably see some of the ways that Mac Jones can improve, the way that Mac Jones can become a serviceable quarterback. But to me, I haven't wavered in terms of like where I would have Justin Fields at in this class, and I've always had him ahead of Mac Jones. But either way, we're not the ones making these decisions. We're not the ones getting paid a bunch of money to do it. So either way, I think that it's important to understand that even if it is Mac Jones at 3 to San Francisco, I mean, either one of these two guys is going to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the thing that we should all keep in mind. I mean, whether or not you now want to push up Mac Jones' value in Dynasty, okay, fine. But what were you doing with Deebo Samuel beforehand? What were you doing with Brandon Ayuk? I mean, George Kittle probably been sitting at the TE1 slot for a while. But for those guys, are you moving them? Are you trying to acquire them? Are you trying to maybe move out from under them and sell them high because we're thinking now that their production is going to increase now under Mac Jones, and so you're trying to move them for other assets? I mean, that should be the line of thinking versus just looking at what is the quarterback position going to look like moving forward. It's now how does that flow out to the other guys? I mean, heck, we could even be talking about guys like Richie James as low end flyers that you want to hold on the back end of your bench, because Mac Jones can probably be the tide that lifts all the boats in that offense. So I can see that as being either one is a positive for that entire offense. It's just if you want that if you want possibly like Jalen Hurts level, that sort of peaks, I think Justin Fields could get you that.
And another thing that I didn't consider until just now is that there's two frames of thinking about it from it's strictly a Kyle Shanahan standpoint. One, the league's been seeing him do it for a long time, and he's been doing it with quarterbacks like Nick Mullins, quarterbacks like C.J. Beathard. Jimmy Garoppolo had some good games, but other than that, he's pretty much been the same vein.
Did it with Kirk Cousins,
Nick Mullins. Yeah. And what I'm thinking is either he just doesn't care. He wants a system quarterback that's going to run his system well. And that would be Mac Jones, in my opinion. He probably would do better at that. But on the other hand, if he wants to evolve even further, speaking on Kyle Shanahan, if he wants to evolve even further as an offensive quarterback, quarterbacks coach, quarterbacks guru, I guess, he's not really elevating the quarterbacks, but he's making them work. So whatever that is, if he wants to take it to the next level and keep the league from catching up to him, it's Justin Fields. So that's a question there too. I mean, it might not be as cut and dry as I'm thinking and just negative towards Justin Fields. Maybe Kyle Shanahan says, look, Justin Fields is great. He's going to create on his own quite a bit. I don't want that. I want the ball out of his hands in 1.5 to 2 seconds. And that's that. Okay, well, I'll buy it. Take Mac Jones, whatever. But if he does want to evolve, which I think that he is a very smart offensive mind, probably the best we have, I think he wants Justin Fields. And I think that the smart move is evolve your offense. Change it up. People have seen you in the Super Bowl. It didn't go well. You lost. So, and we forgot to mention they lost because Jimmy Garoppolo missed the pass that Mac Jones missed in his pro day, right? You can't write a better narrative than that.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the thing I'm going to be at least trying to keep in context is regardless of if it's Jones, regardless of if it's Fields, because as much as I'm rooting for Justin Fields, I mean, I'm an Ohio native, so I'm going to root for my boys. Trying to keep it within the context of the dynasty perspective. Either will now elevate the guys that we were already holding in high regards, like within the San Francisco offense. So this is great. I mean, either way, after the draft, I mean, we're going to be looking at more production, or at least that's going to be the narrative until the whomever winds up making their first snap. And that's the other part we didn't even get to is, I mean, at this point they're still keeping Jimmy. I mean, so it's most likely going to be Jimmy Garoppolo for, I would assume, at least 8 to 10 games until the playoff picture starts to come more into focus, and then they might make the switch after that. But there's no guarantee to say that, week one, snap one, it's going to be Mac Jones under center. I don't see that happening.
Well, I think that it's more likely Justin Fields than Mac Jones, even without my obvious opinion towards Justin Fields being the superior option. It's the type of player that the electric player that Justin Fields is. I mean, Mac Jones can make some incredible passes in practice too, and that's fine, and that will be expected of him. But Justin Fields has the ability to make your starting defense look silly. And this is walking down narrative street again because we have nothing else to go off of right now. But if Justin Fields ends up being the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, I think we see him much earlier. I don't think that Jimmy G fends him off all season. But maybe it would be good for Mac Jones to sit a full season behind Jimmy Garoppolo and then take off from there, because Kyle Shanahan's offense is very, very difficult to learn. And if you don't have the wheels to improvise, you're going to have a tough time behind center in that offense without knowing what you're doing. So full speculation, I admit it, there's nothing else you can do right now. I think that Mac Jones might end up sitting a whole season figuring things out. And I think Justin Fields can improvise enough to get himself in the offense and, help him win some games. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is keeping them in games or making it harder on what is normally a really good defense. And get a guy out there that's going to help win some games.
No, I'm with you. So I'm rooting for Justin Fields, but obviously we see where the betting markets, you're basically betting at, I think, like plus money at this point in order to put a bet down on Mac Jones.
Yeah. Mac Jones sitting at like at negative 120 in some places. I mean, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, the betting markets have already moved in that direction. I mean, there's pretty much no speculation that there's going, that goes counter to the things that we've been hearing for the last week or so. So that's why we're going to have to move forward until we see whomever step up to the podium, or they're going to be doing on cameras, I guess, for this season again in the draft.
I think they're in person only because I read the article.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Lawrence isn't going.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll see what happens like when the pick 3 comes up in Cleveland. It's
going to be crazy.
Here in a few weeks. It's going to be wild. But I mean, that's all the time we've got for tonight. I mean, we appreciate you guys stopping by and listening to us go on about, some of the latest news and notes and like how it relates to fantasy. If you like our show, any of the other shows that are going on here with the Football Guys Network, Jordan McNamara, Chad Parsons, like doing their stuff over with their Dynasty show. Mm-hmm. Of course, the flagship shows, with Sig, On the Couch, The Audible, all of that. We definitely appreciate you guys taking a look at the shows. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop us a comment. Let us know what information that you're looking for out of some of the news that's coming out. And drop us a DM. Hit us up on Twitter. Twitter handles below, at Chris Allen FFWX, at AP Wilde. But we'll be here each week trying to break it down for you. So we'll catch you on next week.
Peace.